And welcome to another Huddle Breakdown Extra Time. The weekend starts here, folks. So I'm joined as ever by James and by Alan. My name's Martin Murphy. I'm your host, and quite a lot to get through as ever in the Extra Time show. So just a brief summary. Obviously, we'll be discussing Celtic's sobering defeat in Denmark against Midtjylland last night here as we record on the Friday. So we'll be considering where that leaves Celtic in many respects. We'll be hopefully or chiefly looking back on the victory over the Rangers in the semi-final of the Cup. But remember, we're on brand, folks, so I'm sure we'll find some things that will get your pulses racing and worrying you for the season ahead there as well. We'll start off, I think, by sharing some information that's just come through. It's from the Celtic Fans Collective. It's basically based on an article by the Celtic Trust. So I'll read this out just for those of you who are listening. I know many of you do. So the Celtic Fans Collective, it has come to our attention that shareholders have been blocked from proxying their votes to the Celtic Trust ahead of the upcoming AGM, which the club has claimed is due to a technical fault within the voting system. This issue has only affected those voting with the Celtic Trust. The timing of this is deeply troubling. The Celtic Trust has taken part in AGMs for over 20 years without issue. Yet, at a moment when pressure in the board is at its highest and supporters are calling for real structural and strategic change, the voice of small shareholders is being obstructed. This issue raises serious questions about how the board views and treats supporters and small shareholders, and about the overall direction of the club. It is yet another example of poor governance and a failure to engage meaningfully with the support, demonstrating clearly that change is needed at Celtic Football Club. Alan, just very quickly, your thoughts, please.
Listen, I honestly don't know if, as they say, it's a technical fault or whether anything else is afoot. Honestly, no insight into that. But it's just not a great look, really, and it's just another sort of example, I suppose, if any more were needed, of a poor relationship between the club and in this case, not just their supporters, but in their owners. These are shareholders. These are people who actually own part of the club, right? So, we kind of rail against stratification of supporters. You're a better sport than me, and all that sort of stuff. But people who have shareholdings do have special status in this regard, and do need to be looked after. I think David Lowe was on with Tino on the Celtic Exchange. I think he said that with 28,000 shareholders, his view was that Celtic have got more shareholders than any other football club in the world, which I thought was stunning. I've not verified that, but that's a stunning fact if it's true. And I think you were just chatting on air before that Celtic has one of the most vibrant ecosystems of supporter engagement of any club in the world. I think David at Celtic News Now once told me there's over 400 different sites registered on Celtic News Now that produce content. Now, they're not all active at the same time, but it's an incredibly vibrant scene. So, why wouldn't you want to engage with your supporters in a better and more meaningful way? So, as I say, I don't know what is behind this, if it is a technical fault or what, but it just doesn't feel right. This is all a little bit of theatre in the sense that there is going to be no meaningful votes that will upset whatever Desmond wants the way the vote to go. We all know that, but it's nevertheless important that people's views are respected, they're recorded correctly, and that they're given the chance to at least voice their opinion on these matters.
Thanks very much, Alan. As I say, unfortunate at best. I think it's fair to say. Anyway, let's go on with the football side of things. So Celtic dropped down to 27th in the Europa League, remain on 4 points. A disappointing 3-1 defeat last night in Denmark. couldn't get Hamlet out of my head there, I'm afraid, James. You know, I think something is rotten in the state of Denmark, and it was Celtic's performance, another Danish tragedy. Listen to the show with you guys and Laura. Anyone who hasn't, very, very interesting show in many respects. I suppose my concern prior to the game was the set pieces from Midtjylland, the XG that they were showing from that compared to in ball play, if you like, you know, was negligible. Well, we've certainly improved their XG in terms of, you know, outside of the set pieces. So, James, what's your thoughts on last night? Where do you feel it was kind of really gone wrong? Is it down to the individual players just quite simply not being good enough, or was it the way that we were set up? I mean, what's your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was some of all the above, as is often the case. Thought that, and again, we talked about this earlier in the week after the Rangers game, that there was, clear evidence of material shift. I wouldn't say like crazy shift, but material shift and directness and less focus on the horseshoe of death type of stuff that we've all lamented in the past. And I think, you know, when you're dealing with a team like Midtjylland, the less control you have over the game, the more, you know, when you have a lot of possession in the game, you know, there's two sides of all this stuff. There's positives and negatives. And when you have control, then you limit the amount of transitions and the amount of second balls and the kind of chaos that a team that's bigger, faster, stronger can benefit from. And I don't mean that in a sense of like these guys were just, you know, athletes that don't know how to play football. I mean, I thought on the day they looked better technically too. I mean, they looked like they were by far the better team all around, kind of three-dimensionally. And I didn't think our setup helped that. I didn't think the selection necessarily helped that. You know, felt bad for James Forrest. But again, just to put this into perspective, and I've been talking about this for ages now, is this whole idea of what youth is anymore. You know, when we have 23, 24-year-old players and I hear our supporters say, oh, they're young, I'm like, nah, it's been driving me nuts for a few years now, because that's not the case. I mean, they actually played 7 players yesterday that are younger than Arne Engels. 4 of them started. One of them was younger than Callum Osman. So, and that was the guy that played left wing and scored and looked like a man and was fast like a man and was quick like a man. You know, he wasn't like a weakling looking 19-year-old. He looked, you know, he's already kind of in a man's body. So, yeah, I thought the selection didn't help. And again, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Clearly there's fitness issues. You know, Alan and I were glowing last season about all the rotation and the risk management with injuries. They just all went right out the window this season again, with a lack of depth. Guys probably getting pushed more. I don't know. I mean, it just, hamstrings are tearing right and left now. So that was a really bad part of the game as well. I think I even heard Engels pulled up a little bit lame at the end with a hamstring.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that or noticed that watching live, certainly. So, yeah, I just thought comprehensively it was pretty awful. And I have an image here, and I know ahead of time this is not an ideal image. I just wanted to share this to provide context, because I think we need to grade this on a curve, and we'll get into this a little bit more. I mean, this was Midtjylland away. This was not playing Barcelona. This was not playing, you know, a big club in a top 5 league. And again, I'm not saying this to diminish Midtjylland or how good they were or how good of a well-run club they are, but a matter of, you know, this is not news. I tweeted yesterday, a lot of people were talking about it yesterday because it was lamenting not only the result but the performance was.
We hope you enjoyed this free preview from all of us here at the Huddle Breakdown. We know you have options and we really appreciate you tuning in. To hear the rest of this episode and for much more Huddle Breakdown content, head on over to www.huddlebreakdown.com. We hope you consider subscribing. Thank you.